This video is going to be about taking rhythmic dictation. Rhythmic dictation is when you listen to a rhythm tapped or sung or clapped or played and you're able to write it down using the appropriate note values. This is a really important exercise to work on because if you're not able to do this, if you're not able to listen to what someone plays and write it down, you're not able to compose your own music. You might play something, you might improvise something, and you like the way it sounds. You think you remember what keys you played so you can write the notes. But if you don't understand how to take what you played and organize it in rhythm notation, then that's going to hold you back. So at this stage of the game, this rhythmic notation, you need certain parameters. We're not to the level yet where you just listen to something and then you know how many measures, you know what the time signature is. That's another level. We're going to start with basic parameters. It doesn't really matter what the clef is, but I'm going to give you 4 measures of 3/4. So you can go ahead and write down this. This is what you're looking at. This is what you know you need to fill in. And I'm going to tap the rhythm a few times, and each time I'm going to give you a tip for how to listen to it and how to notate it. So I'll count off 2 measures, and then I will say the rhythm. I'll hum the rhythm, basically. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Da 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 da. Now, if you were able to remember all of that and write it down the first time, you don't need this lesson. You may realize you could probably tap it back. You could repeat it to me or say it again, but you still don't know what the note values are. Okay, so here's step 2. In addition to what you've got in front of you, you might just want to chart out where the 3 beats are in each measure. So I'll do it again and I'll keep track of where we are as we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Da 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 da. Okay, the point in doing that is when you're taking rhythmic dictation, you're not just listening with your ears. You hear something and then magically it's translated into notation over here. Like it's gone through the computer and you just get notes on the page. When you're doing rhythmic dictation, your fingers are also listening, or all of your fingers together, or your hand tapping, or your foot tapping along with you. Our ears are not the only thing that listens, believe it or not, especially with rhythm. So in that instance, you may have already had some inkling of what you're going to write down, and if you're doing it, that's great. You may have also realized when we got to this measure, da, da, da. Super easy. Why don't we just start there? Another thing about rhythmic dictation is your brain, when you're listening to something from the beginning to the end, your brain is listening to different parts of it differently. Usually we focus on what's at the beginning and then we kind of lose track. And then we come back to it, especially when it's just ended and we have this in our memory. So don't worry about it if you kind of think you know what happened in the middle. and maybe the first 2 beats. That's okay. Now, the next step I'm going to give you takes this a little bit further. Not only am I going to keep track with my finger as we go, I'm actually going to give it the finger number that goes with the beat. So you remember when I counted off 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do that as I go along. So we already have one measure. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Da 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 da. And that way, I'm doing it visually for you, but it could even be better if you tap along like that. Do that once more with me. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Da 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 da. Okay, so what that does is, for example, when you get to this measure, da da. Okay, I tapped this finger, but I wasn't saying or humming anything. Da da. So I know there was a note here, and I know there was a note here. How do I translate that into the notation? And that's when you realize, okay, this note took up 2 beats, so it obviously has to be a half note. And then if we fill in our beginning and ending measures, da 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 da. So you might, if you're just listening and you're not tapping, you might think, okay, there were 3 notes right next to each other. Da, 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 da. And you might end up with something like this. That's a good start. But then you want to realize as you're tapping, da, 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 da. The third one of the group that you hear together is actually the last beat. So that gets a full beat. And then you know that you take these that are left, and those are the 2 eighth notes that fill in that beat. Da, 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 da. Once you've got it and you tap it, you realize it makes sense. It's when you're just listening to it and not feeling it with your fingers that you can get lost. All right, we have one more measure. I'm going to tap the whole thing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Da 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 da. Da da da. And since it says the end, you can repeat it easily in your brain. I heard 2 notes on this beat, and then just 1 note left, which means I'm going to translate it into a half note. Okay, we've done our rhythmic dictation. Now you notice I just wrote slashes for the beats. I didn't write numbers. You can definitely substitute numbers if you like to keep track of that. But we kept track of the numbers with our fingers, right? So you can kind of see 1. Okay, there was nothing on the second beat. I was holding that note. There are any number of ways that you can keep track as you're listening. But it really is, you're not just listening and then somehow magically your brain turns it into dots and stems and whatever. Your fingers, your feet, your hand is listening along with you. Okay. That's it for now. We'll do more rhythmic dictation in the class.